All right, welcome back. Another special edition of Rock Forever. We got a guest. You know all his records. He's in your record collection, all sorts of places. He's a guitarist, writer, producer. You know him from Stevie Nicks and Keith Richards and Lynn Ronstadt, and of course, so many more. We're gonna welcome to the show WaddyWachtel.
Hey Jay, thanks for having me, man. How are
Great
you?
to see you. You know, the immediate family. I know we got a big show coming up. We got of course, a second record in the works. But let's talk a little bit about your past. I know you go. Danny says you go back 45 years with Cooch. You know, talk about first meeting Danny Korchmar and getting in the mix of all these great players, Leland Sklar and Russ Kunkel.
Well, I'll give you the sequential way it happened. I moved out here in 1968. And I was working, I started doing sessions, excuse me. And then my late dear friend, Keith Olsen, who I did a lot of work with, a great producer, booked me on a session for Bobby Womack and booked Leland on the date as well. So Lee and I were the first ones to meet. And we got along that day just the same way we still do today. And about a week or so later, because I knew, I'd see these names on records, Lee Sklar, Russ Kunkel, Danny Korchmar. Who are these guys? Why don't I know these guys? And I was driving a 57 Chevy. And as I was pulling into Studio Instrument Rentals, this other 57 Chevy was pulling out. And we basically stopped right in the middle of Santa Monica Boulevard. And Russell looked at me, he goes, "Are you Waddy?" And I went, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm Russ." I went, "Oh man, it's so great to meet you." And then people were honking at us. He goes, I gotta go, but we're gonna be seeing a lot of each other. I said, I hope so, man. And then a couple of weeks later, I got a call from Lou Adler's office to do a session for Tim Curry. And remember Tim Curry? Sure you do, right?
Yeah, of course. Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah. And he had a couple of great songs too. He had a couple of, but this is an album project. And I show up and it's Leland, it's Russell, and there's Danny Korchmar. Finally, I'm meeting this guy Cooch, who I'm going, who is this guy? Why don't I know him? And why is he getting all this work? And do I hate this guy or what? And we fell in love with each other the second we met. And what confirmed it even more was the first song that Lou wanted us to do for Tim was a reggae tune. And at that moment, The Harder They Come movie had just come out. And myself and Warren Zevon and our friend Jorge Calderon, that's all we listened to. And it turned out that's all Danny was listening to. So we were both completely up on our reggae and knew exactly what to play with each other and have never gotten in each other's way since then on the necks of these guitars. It's always been like a unspoken logic between us.
Yeah, well, so many classics.
And I think that was probably 1973, I'd say. Could have been 73, could have been 74.
Yeah, the golden era of the 70s. We look back at our record collection, and of course there's great records in the 60s, but it seemed to set up the 70s. The 70s were so rich with so many incredible artists, so many incredible albums. The touring business really grew and exploded. What do you think it was about the 70s that really is like the blueprint for any great act coming out today?
It's I don't know exactly how to answer that, but I can tell you from my point of view, Los Angeles was the 70s. I mean, when I moved here, like I said, I got here in 68, things were still very Beatle, very Stones. And then all of a sudden this explosion started here. There was Jackson Browne, there was Little Feat, I met Dave Crosby. The second or third day I was in this town, I met David Crosby. I couldn't believe it. I came out of New York thinking, Crosby is someone I'd love to meet. And there he is at a table, three tables away from us at his restaurant. And I went, I got to go make a fool of myself, introduce myself. And we became pals. And David said to me, he called me one day, he goes, what would you think if I was to put a band together with Steve Stills and Graham Nash? But you got to be kidding me. It'll be the biggest band in the world forever. That's what I think. I know it. I don't even have to think about it. It will be. And so that was, everything was coming together in Los Angeles right then. You know, there was CSN, Jackson, there was Warren, Linda, J.D. Souther Hillman Fure, and then a little band called the Eagles started playing. We went, who are these guys? Oh my God, listen to them. It was an extraordinary time. It was, I parallel it to like Liverpool in the 60s. The incredible explosion that happened there is basically what happened in LA. And everything grew out of those early days in the 70s, you know?
Yeah, so many of the great studios on Sunset, you know, Sunset Boulevard and Santa Monica
remarkable.
Boulevard, Hollywood Boulevard, they were just popping.
And not only that, it was such a beautifully musically shared time, where what I mean is if you weren't in the studio with working on something, you were at someone's house writing something, you know, or you were playing on a song for somebody, or you were learning a tune, or you were at home writing. And it was just this incredible shared space that went on. It was a beautiful, beautiful situation. Touring eventually took everybody out of town. And then as the touring dollars started to pile up and seeing how easily they could multiply, it started to tarnish the beauty that was here, you know, I will say. But nonetheless, the studio scene kept going for years and years and years here. It's still going now, but it's a whole different world. But that was an extraordinary time to be here. And I'm very, very blessed and lucky that I showed up when I did.
Yeah, you had so many artists living up on Laurel Canyon. You had Tower Records up on the Strip and the clubs. Of course, Lou Adler had the Roxy Theater and the Whiskey a Go-Go that's really flourished, and so much excitement everywhere you went. But like you say, the concert business really turned into a business, and they were offering these artists more and more money to go out and play these, long tours, and of course, one of the first ones where I remember visibly seeing you was with Linda Ronstadt. She was on a roll. She had all those great records and covers and everything she was doing. And here's Waddy. I mean, what was that like, seeing Linda explode, coming out of that kind of Eagles and all those great artists, like you say, Jackson Browne and JD and everybody?
Well, when you're in the middle of it, it's work. You know what I mean? I went to the studio and Peter Asher asked me to come play on a song for Linda. I did. She really liked it. So I did a few more. And then Peter said, I want you to go on the road with Linda. And I said, oh, okay. Peter saw me with Danny, Lee, and Russ at UCLA playing with Carole King when we did her Thoroughbred record. And so Peter approached me for Linda's tour. But like you said, the tours were long. I mean, you were going out for months at a time. You weren't going out for like a 3-week stint, or like what they do now, they call weekend warriors, where people just go out on the weekends. You were out there for quite a while, and it was fantastic though. I mean, you were going from town to town, playing places that weren't huge, and all of a sudden you're playing places that are huge, but you're still doing the exact same thing. You know what I mean? So, like I said, when you're in the thick of it, you're just doing the work. You don't really realize it. When all of a sudden I see Linda on the cover of Rolling Stone, and you see all the hype going about it, that's a whole other area. But it was fantastic. I mean, she's such an incredible singer, an amazing artist. And every night on stage, it was a thrill to play her songs and to get them right for her. So that's what we do for a living, is get it right for the artists we're working for. And we had the good fortune of Peter Asher being the guy who said, not only do I want you to play on the record, I want you to go tour with Linda or with James, so the music will sound exactly the same on stage as it did on the record. And it was a great thing. That wasn't going on before Peter made that happen. Wrecking Crew guys who were unbelievable, but they stayed in town. They went from session to session to session. They never left town. I think Hal Blaine maybe snuck out of town here and there, but very rarely. But that was our life. Come back home, do the record, do the album project, and then go tour it for months.
Yeah, well, this is well before MTV and the internet and cell phones. So we had
Yeah.
these college campuses, and I know you guys were playing a lot of college gigs. And then, like you say, they were bigger arenas or outdoor festivals that were cropping up in the bigger cities. What was the difference from you between, playing on the record and then going out and seeing the reaction live, playing in the band?
Well, there's nothing like playing live, and making records is an incredible magic experience. But records are really an approximation of what an artist does on stage live, because you can't substitute that chemistry of a live audience digging what you do, and you digging to give them what they want. And what happens, that the interplay of that is you can't make that happen anywhere else except in a concert situation. Nightclub, doesn't matter if it's a club or a giant arena or an outdoor stadium, it's the same thing. And it's just wonderful when people love what you're giving them. And like I said, our job is to get out there and do it right. So if we do it right, people respond. That's what it's all about. And if the artist we're working for was happy with us, that's as good as it. That's why for us now, the immediate fan must be our own front man is such a gas, because we've done it for so long for so many great artists. And we've learned a lot from that, as far as working on stage, as far as writing songs, and as far as, lyric content, what you're saying in music. So for us, it's a thrill to finally have our own stage. And it came from all the lessons we learned from Linda, James, Keith Richards, Stevie Nicks, and I still working together after 40 years together, I think.
Yeah, well, they learn from somebody else and you learn from them. It's a beautiful chain. And I know coming up in the 60s, like you say, there was the British invasion. But when you really talk to those British artists that were exploding, the Stones and the Beatles and the Who and everything, all their heroes were American. They were all the rhythm and blues and soul artists,
Well, the 50s dictated everything to everybody for the 60s. I mean, my first job out of Los Angeles was with the Everly Brothers. And I couldn't believe I was even hearing somebody say, the Everly Brothers need a guitar player. And I went, you got to be kidding me. I said, well, let me tell you, that's me. Because I know every song they've ever done. I know every guitar part. I know every vocal part. I know the lead, the harmony. That's my gig. What do I do? Where do I sign up? And that's where I met Warren Zevon. He was the band leader I had to audition for, and spent a year on the road with the Everlys and with Warren. And when I got done, Warren stayed on. I left, and I was back in the studios doing studio work. And then Warren got the green light with Jackson to do his album. And then after that, we did the Excitable Boy album together. And it's been an amazing ride. But it's all, the 50s showed everybody what the music's about, between all the black groups that were so incredible, all the guys from the South, and then the guys from the South, the white guys from the South, Elvis, the Everlys. When the Everlys came out in the 50s, I didn't know. I thought I was losing my mind seeing these two guys standing together with those giant guitars, and the most beautiful looking guys I've ever seen. And then they'd sing. You couldn't stand yourself, you couldn't stand it. And being on the road with them every night, hearing them sing, was unbelievable.
Yeah, well, rest in peace to the Everly Brothers. We've lost so many of the greats, the founding fathers of rock and roll, the Chuck Berrys, the Little Richards, so many of these guys, the BB Kings. I think it's so important to show these people the love and give them their flowers while they're still here. I can't help but feel that, Little Richard and Chuck Berry were a little bitter. They felt like people took their sound and went and made millions with it, and people forgot about where it came from. What's your feeling about that? Like, we have some still living treasures, some living legends out there. How important is it to show them that respect and love while they're here, and let them know, where these sounds came from?
I think if Richard and Chuck had been in our social media instant communication response world, they would have gotten that love. You know what I mean? It was a much different way to communicate back then. And I'll say I worked with Little Richard towards the end, and he wasn't bitter. I mean, I know Chuck Berry, Chuck had a bone up his butt for everybody. He was a hard to handle piece of work, but a genius. He inspired everything. He wrote the lyrics. He invented Bob Dylan. He invented all of us. His lyrics, they're still, you look at those, you read those words, they're mind blowing. That someone could have even come up with that stuff. So I think people who deserve respect now are getting a handful of it, because it's easier to find those accolades, and people are much more outspoken, and everything you say can instantly be shared with the world. You know what I mean, Jay? It's a different world. So
yeah, it really is, and I know the bitterness doesn't show, but I know they sometimes, a lot of these artists, they feel like people call them a has-been and they're forgotten, when really, like you say, they're still the roots of what we're doing. They're still the blueprint and the foundation of that new Stones record, of that new, Paul McCartney song, they're still right there.
Yeah. I'm still trying to play Bo Diddley the right way. I've been playing it.
Absolutely. Well, of course, the Warren Zevon Excitable Boy brought us that amazing, Werewolves of London, which is still, getting covered and interpolated. Kid Rock takes the hook and mixes it with Skinnerd, and got a hit with it. What's it feel like to see people still loving what you did, almost 50 years ago?
It's mind blowing. It's fantastic. It's truly wonderful.
Yeah. And
I got what else to say. Yeah, it's
of course. And speaking of, rock that doesn't stop, I saw you, Keith Richards and the Expensive Winos at the Hollywood Palladium. Such a great show.
Oh, great. And, I'm so glad you were there.
I mean, we're working with Keith, he, like they say, he's outlasted them all, even the people that he's influenced, he will go down, as one of the, the greatest ever. I mean, the Beatles broke up over 50 years ago, and Keith and Mick are still going, Charlie Watts, rest in peace. The Stones are still doing it. How did you get that call? I know you're around those same circles, but when Keith said, "Hey, I'm forming a solo band, I want you to be the guitarist with me."
That's exactly what he said. I had met Keith when I was on the road with Linda. Actually, we met. We really fell in very well together. We really dug each other, and I got to spend like 3 days with him in London before I came back. And every time he'd come to the States, I'd see him. We would just, get together, play some music, make some noise, have a good laugh, have a drink, and then I got a call one day from some attorney saying, "Waddy, I'm such and such. I represent Keith Richards, and he's trying to find you." And I said, "Well, you found me. Why don't you give him my number?" And he goes, "Yeah, very funny, very funny. Would you call him? He's over at Larrabee Studios. Would you call him?" So I gave him a call. He goes, "Wads, what are you doing, man?" I said, "I'm here. What's up?" He goes, "I'm putting a band together, and you're in it. You're the other guitar player." I went, "Oh, really? Fantastic, man." And he goes, what are you doing right now?" I said, "I'm just at home." He says, come on by the studio. Can you come by?" So I went by and visited him, and Steve Jordan were there. They were working on the Chuck Berry film. I met Taylor Hackford there, and Helen was there, Helen Mirren. But that was it. Keith said, "You're it. You're the other guitar player." Boom. No ifs, ands, or buts. So I went, "Fine with me, man." Beautiful. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. And I know, like I say, Keith is an assimilation of everything that was great about the 50s and the 60s. And he's still doing it, and the Stones will last until either Keith or Mick, fall by the wayside, but they're still going. I mean, these big SoFi Stadium shows they just did, this tour,
Great.
Steve Jordan right in there filling for Charlie Watts.
Steve did the amazing job. I kept saying there's only one guy that could sit down in that seat, and Charlie agreed. Charlie gave him his blessing, and Steve, it's just fantastic. I was watching I was on YouTube every night watching the shows, talking to Steve, going, man, I love the way you guys did that one, the way you did that one. It's great. It was great. Steve brought his energy to their songs, and their songs gave him the fire to do them right. It was just remarkable. You saw the smiles on their faces, Keith and Woody and Mick. I mean, those guys never haven't smiled that much in years. I told Keith, I said, you're smiling an awful lot up there, ain't you? He goes, yeah, I got to cut out the smiling, man. I can't help it. It was beautiful to see them having a ball.
Yeah, they got to be pinching themselves after all these years that people still want them. They're still filling these stadiums, two nights here at SoFi.
Steve's
they can't get enough.
Steve's participation just gave them that drive that they needed. Everyone was worried about it. Steve, Mick, Keith, they're all going, what are we doing? And as soon as they started playing it, it was a lock, and they knew it. And every show that I saw on YouTube was fantastic.
Wow. Well, I know, after Linda Ronstadt, another great female artist, Stevie Nicks, I know you knew her before she joined Fleetwood Mac with Lindsay, and now she's solo and doing all these great records. What did you learn, or what did you bring to the table after having, worked with Linda that you could, provide for Stevie, for that, solo career?
Well, Stevie is a complete package there, pretty much. She writes her songs. She knows how she wants to sing them, and she does. I mean, what I bring to it, I for some reason, I have an organizational mind when it comes to music. So I'm good at arranging bands to do the right thing. So I do that for Stevie, and on stage, I make sure she's as comfortable as can be, and we can rock and roll up there and feel as much freedom as we can, knowing that the band is up to snuff on every song, every part will be right. And that's what I do for her. I make sure she's got a great stage to walk onto, and there'll be no surprises. And if they are, there'll be good musical, great surprises. And we get a lot of those at night because we have a ball on stage every time.
Well, that's what it's about. And I know you know that more than ever. The biggest artists, they still want to make sure that it's fun. Yeah, it's a big business. There's millions of dollars at stake on this tour and these crews and all these salaries and everything. But the bottom line is you got to go out there and have fun. That's what you got to convey to the audience. You're not up there counting your money. You're out there literally playing like a teenager in a garage.
Yeah, well, you got to have fun, and you got to mean it, first of all, and that's at the bottom of it all. And you learn that when you're in the studios, and someone's singing a song, and if you're in the booth recording them, you're going, I don't hear it yet. I don't feel you meaning it yet. That comes up a lot, you realize. And when I say Stevie being a complete package, she means it every time she opens her mouth to sing. She's ready, and she knows exactly what she's going to sing, and she's a miracle. So to work with her this long is a complete honor, and I take it very seriously. And we have a ball, but we're very serious about what we do. So
yeah. Well, she knows she can count on you, and I'm sure you're one of the first calls. Hey, we got a new record to make, or we're going to go do some shows. And it's like family, it's not like it's a job. It's gotta feel more than that. And speaking of that, the immediate family, here's your new band after all these years with these players that have played on thousands of records collectively. Danny Cooch, Korchmar, of course, Lee Sklar, Russ Kunkel, talk about, putting this band together and what feels the best about being able, like you say, to go out and be the front man, be the band, be the main attraction, be, everything that you want to be here in the 2020s.
Well, everything you just said is what it's about. And also I want to mention Steve Postel's name as our third guitar player and fifth member of the band. He's the new guy. We've only known him about 20 years. You know, he's the new guy. So, but he's got a great voice, Steve, and he's an excellent guitar player. So we've got these three great guitar players that can work together. Got the best rhythm section in the world. Russ Kunkel and Lee Sklar have made more records than anybody. And it's just it's an unbelievable gas for us to be able to go out, sing our own songs, and see people actually digging it. We have a great record company behind us that's given us a lot of strength and funding that we needed to make the record we did. They're totally behind us. Quarto Valley Records, they're amazing, and we are just so not only happy to be doing what we're doing, we're so lucky to be doing what we're doing. I mean, we've been doing this for so long, and we've considered being in bands here and there and that, but when we made this solo album for Danny for Japan, he was doing, and all of us could actually be there to record with him. And at one point he said, okay, they want me to tour. He says, I can't do this without you guys. So why don't we become the band we should be? And we all went, yeah, exactly. Let's do it. Now's the time. And Danny came up with the name Immediate Family. And it seemed like, may not be the best name in the world, but that is exactly what we are. We are each other's family. And we are thrilled that people actually dig what we're doing. So we can't wait to get out on stage some more. I mean, I'm bummed that, you know, we have one more show to do. We're doing a show this weekend on Sunday, and that's the last show for the year. I wish we were playing everywhere all the time. You know, we just did a short little stint on the East Coast, and it went great. It was wonderful. And we did a night in New York with our dear friend Willie Nile, open the show for us. Had a great rock and roll night that night. We finished up in Ardmore, Pennsylvania. We did everywhere we played. People were just happy, you know, to see. And I got to tell you, another aspect of it, I almost lost it on stage during the first couple of shows. I just want you people to know how grateful we are that you came to see us, and that we're actually here playing live for people after not being able to for just about 2 years of no performances whatsoever. So add that to the mix, and it's really a special time to be out on stage. So it means the world to us. And we've got, like I said, we have a new record in the works we're working on now. Yeah, it's a great material for this one. I think you will really love it. We're really digging what's happening, and we can't wait to get that one done. We got the documentary coming out about us.
That's going to be amazing. The guys behind the Wrecking Crew are documenting and archiving, you know, the history, and, you know, so much of your audience has big record collections, you know, and you guys are playing on so many of those records. And it's great to have that feeling that even though you guys have always been the backing band, the backing musicians, that they're going to support you, you know, doing your songs, you know, and being the front man and being able to sing some of these songs that Henley or Jackson Brown or whoever sang originally. You know, it's a great feeling to see, you know, the love for music hasn't died, even though so much of the business has changed.
True. Yeah, it's the audience is just couldn't be greater, and it couldn't seemingly be happier either. They're having a ball out there. And when we do Werewolves, I'm trying to make sure everybody howls along with me on the chorus, and we have a great time, man. It's a very privileged situation to be in. I'm honored to play with these guys.
Yeah, well, I know we've lost your friend Warren. Speaking of Werewolves, an excitable boy. What can you say was the greatness that Warren Zevon was? Because he left a lot of great music, but didn't do a lot of interviews. We really don't know the person. What made him the great that he was?
Well, Warren was an exceptional writer. I mean, just look at the catalog of his songs and sit down and read his lyrics. His writing was heads and heels above everybody. Just incredible. And he was a lively spirit He had a problem with alcohol for a while. We all did, but Warren's problem was deeply rooted, let's say. And he managed to stop drinking and kept his writing. His writing never faltered. He is an incredible, prolific songwriter and a great player. There was some stuff where we'd be in the studio, and I think it was a Model Citizen. That song, I don't know if you know that song, Model Citizen. And I was supposed to play a solo on it, and I said, we're getting ready, and Warren looked at me with this look in his eyes. I said, what? He goes, can I play the solo? I went, yeah, sure, here. And the solo that's on the record is him, this thing he wanted to do, and it's great. But Warren is a great rhythm piano player, banging out rhythm piano all day and night, and could play some serious classical music on that piano too, and could play some funky blues guitar. He knew a lot of blues songs, a lot of deep, funky 12-string blues, Chicago blues, back porch blues stuff. We spent a lot of time educating each other as to the musics we both knew. He and I argued a lot about music, but we always agreed on Merle Haggard, and we always agreed on the Rolling Stones. Everything else was kind of up for grabs.
Well, I know there's no shortcuts, and of course, everybody is kind of an assimilation of everybody they've loved. But working with some of the great songwriters of all time, what advice do you have to songwriters and musicians coming up today? I know it's a different animal, different hill to climb, but what bit of advice have you gleaned from those you've worked with?
I would just say, first of all, learn every song you like. Learn the words, learn the music, learn the melody, learn the chords, learn every song you like. Learn every solo you like if you're a musician. If you're a songwriter, learn the words to every song you like. The more you learn, the more you will eventually come out with your own. That's been the way I've done it my whole life. I read it when I was a kid in a book about improvisation, where the gentleman who wrote it said, I bought the book because it was going to teach me how to improvise. And it said, nobody can teach you how to improvise. I went, oh, great. It said, so if you hear a horn solo you like, learn it. If you hear solos you like, just learn everything you can. And eventually develop your own music. To do that, it'll start emanating out of you. You'll start producing your own improvisation or melodies. And I don't know, it's hard to say. I know there are some people that say they don't like to listen to anything. There's one, but I don't know if you've seen Get Back yet, but
Yeah.
You ever, look how many songs those guys knew. They knew so many songs, and they played 1 million songs in the movie. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's
I just got an unstable thing on my computer. My internet is shaky. So you know what I mean? But they, look at how many tunes they spit out in that movie. These guys learned every song they ever heard. So then when they started trying to write, they knew what to write. They knew how to write songs because they learned every song there was. I mean, that's something when I met Mick and Keith, that was something I noticed about them and myself, is I've learned every song I've ever liked. I know 1 million songs. These guys know more songs than I do. Mick and I would try to fight each other on the proper phrasing of a line in a song. No, it goes this way. No, it goes this way. Yeah, you're right. It'd be great. The pride and the joy of learning something really well, and then being able to recreate it, and eventually you incorporate it into your own being and your own soul. And that's why these guys can write. That's what Stones are the longest songwriting team in history.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever lasted 50, 60 years of writing songs together. Come on. It's
Yeah, no,
insane.
and you look back at those early days in Hamburg, the Beatles bashing out those,
Right.
Little Richard and Chuck Berry and Everly Brothers and Buddy Holly
That's,
songs. They
that's
just
what,
kind of distilled that DNA of what it took to write a great song. And then look at the output. For 7 years, they wrote a catalog that will last for centuries.
centuries. It's amazing. Yep. But that's my advice, is just don't stop learning. Learn everything you like. Learn things you don't like.
Yeah, and you got to go live life. You got to have experiences to write about. You can vicariously write about somebody else's life, but so many people say go out and live. And you'll have stuff to write about.
Yeah. Warren was also a very avid reader. So he drew a lot of stuff from written word. But yeah, you gotta go live, for sure. You gotta go play. You gotta go be if you're a jazz player, go play jazz. If you're a rock and roller, find somewhere to play some rock and roll, man.
Yeah. Well, we can't wait. Of course, Sunday, the immediate family,
Yeah.
Danny Cooch, Korchmar, Waddy Wachtel, Lee Sklar, of course, your new guy, and Russ Kunkel. Can't leave out the new guy, but
Yeah. Yeah. Sunday night, the 19th.
he's got to be intimidated with you guys, credits, but
I hope so.
it's
I hope so.
it's amazing. Well, like I say, having seen you at the Hollywood Palladium with Keith Richards and all the great shows with Linda Ronstadt and Stevie Nicks, I know there's plenty of music to come, and the audience just can't get enough. So, Waddy, it's a pleasure as always to join you, and we'll see you at the great show. And best of luck on that second album. I know, the audience is out there waiting. We can't get enough of the real thing.
Thanks so much. See you. Can't wait to see you, man. Have a great one. Thanks so much for having me on.